Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for checking out my show, Coin Stories, where I get to hear from the leading voices in Bitcoin, financial markets and investing, political structures, philosophy, and more. Please make sure you're subscribed to the show. And if you're watching this on YouTube, like the video so more people see it, and hit that notifications button so you don't miss out on any new content. This podcast does not provide financial advice. It is for educational and entertainment purposes only. So make sure to do your own research before making any investment decision and be aware of your risk tolerance. I'm able to produce this show thanks to my sponsors, and I'm very picky about who I choose to partner with. So I hope you take the time to listen to the ad reads throughout the show. All right, now to my first partner, where I buy my Bitcoin, Swan. I'm proud to partner with Swan because it is a Bitcoin-only company focused on helping people save for their future and self-custody their Bitcoin, not trade it. Swan offers a private client service, retirement planning, tax loss harvesting, and even home equity conversion. Swan is also committed to educating millions of future Bitcoiners through free educational resources and media projects. I actually use Swan to dollar cost average every day. I deposit a little bit every day that's equivalent to what I might spend on a meal because I actually read that dollar cost averaging daily ends up with a lower cost basis than weekly or bi-monthly at the end of a given year. Swan also produces my show, Hard Money, which reports on Bitcoin adoption and macro trends around the world. So make sure to subscribe to that as well. And to learn more and get $10 in free Bitcoin when you sign up, head to swanbitcoin.com/Natalie Brunell. All right, next up, Bitcoin Conference 2023. This is the ultimate Bitcoin event every year, and it's going to be held once again in Miami Beach, May 18th through the 20th. Last year, there were about 30,000 attendees, and it's hard to believe the scale until you see it in person. There are incredible speaking sessions featuring the world's biggest Bitcoin voices, networking events, games, parties, and of course, Soundfest. I actually credit my career transition to the Bitcoin conference because I went for the first time in 2021, and that's where I dropped my first episodes of Coin Stories, not expecting this to become my full-time job at all, but just hoping to meet Bitcoiners and find more guests for the show. I actually went up to people like Michael Saylor backstage with a business card, and that's how I got him to come on the show. So anything can happen there, especially if you dream of working in the industry. Ticket prices go up every month until May, so don't miss out. And for 10% off, use the code HODL at b.tc/conference. I'll see you there. I'm so lucky to be joined by Preston Pysh for 21 minutes in Jackson, Wyoming.
Let's do it.
Okay, first, it's your first time here. So yeah. Tell me your impression, because I think this place is amazing. And I know you brought your family here. They're pretty excited.
Yeah, I brought my family here. My kids don't see much snow. And when we landed and they saw all the snow, they're just amazed. We drove through Jackson, and my daughter, she goes, "Oh my God, I feel like we're in Christmas Village." So yeah, we're having fun.
So cute. So are you going to be taking ski lessons? What's the plan? You're a pro skier?
I'm not a pro skier, but I can ski. They are taking lessons.
That's awesome.
Yes. Yeah.
Super cute. Well, okay. Let's talk a little bit about Bitcoin, right? But let's keep things positive. I just came from the worst 24-hour airline journey of my life. But it's funny because it made me think more about Bitcoin, right? And how Bitcoin can hopefully fix some of the things that are broken, from just the treatment you get by companies to the values in society. And so I wanted to get your thoughts on some of that, because we've had some interesting conversations just, offline and off camera about how things have really changed. Society is getting to a place where so many people feel left behind, and they vent those frustrations in different ways. Social media obviously provides the perfect platform, right? Yeah. But it's also, there's like a real breakdown where, I don't know, to me, it sometimes feels like people are crying out for help, and most of them don't know they're crying out for Bitcoin. How do you see it?
Yeah, no, I think your point on the incentives kind of breaking down, it seems like it's accelerating. And I think with a lot of the inflation we've seen over the last year and a half, that's making it harder for businesses. Like you were talking about the airline. I saw your reply to American Airlines this morning, which was hilarious. But what I think the reason you got such a reaction from everybody with your amazing response was because everybody can see it, everybody can sense it. And when they're seeing these companies that do they have to compete when all their competitors are doing the exact same thing and not actually providing customer service? They're just like, hey, sorry for your luck. We care, but sorry for your luck was kind of their response. They're in a tricky situation with the the situation with inflation is really what it comes down to. Now, your response was that they're buying back stock, but they're not actually investing in the customers or really caring about that. But when you have so much consolidation of enterprise, and there's only a couple type of companies out there that are really kind of servicing, and we could talk about any type of industry, but that's a theme that you see at the end of these large credit cycles, is the consolidation of enterprise, and they know there's nowhere else to go. And they're trying to pack in as much margin as they can in an inflationary environment. And so that's where the incentives start breaking down.
Right. There's no competition. And I think competition maybe provides a different incentive structure, right? You have to treat the customer better. You have to win them. So do you believe, in that saying, Bitcoin fixes this? Do you think it will adjust all that?
I think it will, but I think it's not going to be on the timeline that many of us want it to be on. And I think it's going to be, it's hard to really kind of understand the timeline, because in one side I could make the argument that maybe things happen a little faster because of how broke credit markets are, and this thing that's offering a solution. It really comes down to how fast people can be educated and kind of grok the essence of the transition that's underway. On the other side, the longer timeline, if they're able to keep credit markets at bay and kind of keep inflation somewhat under 10% or lower, like maybe the transition can happen a little bit slower than what some of us can think. But I think it comes down to more that economic backdrop, that macro backdrop with respect to bond markets in particular, and their ability to control inflation. That's actually going to be the thing that speaks to the speed of Bitcoin adoption, much more so than people understanding Bitcoin.
I've been having really interesting conversations lately with people about our value system changing. Everyone from Natalie Smolensky and Jeff Booth. And you have some really compelling insights on the changing morality and why that is. And I was wondering if you could share a little bit of that, because I think that the media likes to politicize this a lot, but there is this shift where in plain data, there's an increase in overdoses. There's an increase in mental health issues. There's just an increase of things where you think, what's happened? Why are families breaking down? Why are moral systems breaking down? Why is crime on the rise? And it's not really political if you really dig deeper. And so I was wondering if you could share some of what you think.
In general, I would say I would use this example. If you were going to play a video game and you played the game in the first level and you got halfway through the level, you try the second time, and you still got halfway through, and you played a third time, and this time you got 40% through. You played it again, and now you're 30% through. You're gonna quickly just look at that game and say, okay, so the more I play, the worse I get, and there's no point in trying, and I'm gonna just do whatever. And if the requirement is that you got to get to the end of level 1, you're gonna do whatever it takes to ultimately figure out how to get to the end of level 1. Whether that means you're doing it morally and ethically, or you're going to cheat because you think that the game's rigged.
You're incentivized to cheat.
You're incentivized to cheat at that point. And so what we have is a lack of control. The person who's playing the game is saying, I'm not on the controls, somebody else is on the controls, and they're making it more miserable and difficult for me to play this game. When we look around the world and you look at how, I like to use the inflation rate almost like a current that you've got to outpace. So like if you have 2% inflation, you can still kind of swim beyond that. If you're dealing with 5% inflation, it's getting way harder to just stay neutral. And if 10% or plus, like the current's just taking you. And so when people are trying to navigate this type of environment and they don't have much disposable income, the current's just taking them. They're playing the game and they're saying, I can't even get halfway through the level. And so what that's doing is it's warping their perception of everything's rigged. And therefore, I feel like I can just go out and do whatever because I'm playing in a rigged system. And so you see morals shift. You see people justify the way that they view the world and what is right and wrong when they feel like they're up against something that's impossible to control.
Yeah, it was really interesting, that idea of control. When you don't feel like you have control of your situation, your life, the ability to move up, that can really affect you very deeply. And then it affects the relationships around you because, like I talked about with Jeff Booth just a couple of moments ago, this idea that you create your own reality. So if you see negativity, you bring more negativity to you.
That's right.
You surround yourself with positivity, like Bitcoin, you bring more positivity. And, I've never asked you this, but how has Bitcoin changed you?
Well, it's made me think about things much more critically than what I think I used to. It makes me challenge whatever I hear. This is the status quo, or this is just how things are. It's like this light bulb. Like I need to dig deeper on whatever that is, and I think that's kind of the essence. Because when you look at Bitcoin at the start, it almost seems like, well, there's no way that could be that simple, or that it could be the solution to all these things. And then the deeper you dig, and you're just like, oh my God, that's connected to this. And then that's connected to this thing over here that I thought were two totally different things. Even into politics, you can look at it and say, well, they're chasing this thing that's way downstream, and they're trying to wrap policies and things around that. And if they go far enough upstream, they can see that the thing that's causing all of this is a broken form of money. So, to kind of answer your question, I think it's forced me to just really kind of question a whole lot more things for sure. And to just try to think more deeply and more critically in the way I view the world, really.
You had this really great analogy recently about contractions, and they get faster and faster. And it is really interesting when you look at just the last couple of years, accelerated by the pandemic and money printing. But I remember 10 years ago, I never even knew anybody's politics. I didn't know how someone voted. And we weren't in these very, very distinct teams of red versus blue or left versus right. And now it's getting worse and worse, where it's almost like we are getting to that end cycle and things are unraveling.
Yeah.
And we all are waiting for something to quote unquote break.
Yeah.
But it's like the Titanic has hit the iceberg, right? We're starting to take on water. It's just, we're not underneath yet.
Yeah. I think once you start to understand what the core issue is, it's not that you're championing, let's just get there and get this over with so we can kind of move on. But it seems like everything's kind of happening in slow motion of you can see it happening. You can see all the trends kind of getting worse with like the political, for example, where everything's just getting more polarized. And you're like, my gosh, like where does this end? When does that stop and start to revert back the other way where we're more cooperative? But I don't think you get there until we truly do have Bitcoin take on a much, much larger role as to its global settlement layer status relative to all the fiat currencies out there, which I think we're very far away from that right now, at least by market cap standards.
Yeah.
I think once you get to some type of parity between Bitcoin and fiat in buying power terms, that's when you're going to be at the full peak pendulum where things are then going to start going in the opposite direction, and you're going to see some of those trends that seem like they're relentlessly going in a bad direction start to come back the other way.
Well, I think we are in the middle of a transition, and people feel it. The Bitcoiners are pushing us in one direction, but we obviously don't want it to be this chaotic, right, deflationary bust seismic shift where a bunch of people are trying to get on the life raft and they feel like they can't. And it's interesting because following you're really interested in AI and some of the developments in decentralized, protocols like social media, including Nostr. So how do you think this will all converge, and how will AI transform our lives as we transition to Bitcoin?
It's a really hard one because it comes down to training the data set. And whenever I look at just between the US and China, so like our data sets are much more decentralized and more difficult to access than in China, where you have a government entity that literally just is clawing all the data into a consolidated database in order to train it however they deem necessary. Now, I think the Achilles heel of that is who's ever sitting at the top of that's choosing how to train that plethora of data, relative to the more compartmentalized type data that you have here in a free, I'm using air quotes, a free and open marketplace. I think that's going to be the underpinning of nobody really trusting that AI because of the biases that are going to be trained into it.
That's crazy to think about, that this artificial intelligence will also have a bias, and we're going to have to pick between AIs, essentially.
Big time. It is going to, depending on how it's trained and depending on what the interests are of the people that are training that, because I can tell you from a data standpoint, the data set that they're going to be able to pull over in countries like China are going to be massively, like way bigger than the U.S. At least that's what I suspect. And so here in the U.S., and I mean, the ChatGPT is, it's getting crazy. Like for me personally, the little bit that I've played around with it, the stuff that you're seeing, the pictures that are being created through this type of technology, I just can't even imagine where it's going to be in 5 years. And I just saw Elon Musk just made an announcement, I think it was yesterday or the day before, where he's going to try to train his own version. And I mean, he makes a lot of announcements, but the point that I'm really trying to focus in on is the narrative of the biasy of who's training the data set is already starting to emerge. And so you might have these various forms of AI that have biases actually as a selling point to their use. And I just don't know what that looks like. I don't know if that's good or bad.
I know.
We're in totally uncharted territories. And then how does it relate back to Bitcoin and free and open speech like Nostr and stuff like that?
Right.
I don't know that I have an intelligent way to look at it at this point in time, because it is just such uncharted territories. But I think we can rest assured that there's going to be kind of this this point in maybe the next 5 to 10 years where things get very, very interesting. And Eric Weiss had an interesting post, but it did make me think, is like, wait till the AIs start figuring out how powerful Bitcoin is, and like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Right? Because although Wall Street's incentivized not to understand Bitcoin, and a whole bunch of other existing legacy entities are incentivized not to understand Bitcoin, some of these AIs might start understanding it, and that's gonna be an interesting potential turning point as well.
Well, forgive my directness, but I'm worried that this technology is going to make us dumber. If people don't have to think for themselves. I mean, I've seen people tweeting that they don't even have to write college papers anymore, because they could just input information and it spits out a better essay than the average student could write.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think my wife really shares that point with you, is the kids are kind of like learning to write and things like that. She's like, I was showing her some of the stuff and she's like, this isn't good, Preston. I was like, well,
you have to think for yourself.
You do. And so, I mean, like any technology, it's a tool to make you more productive. And underneath of technology that we're using right now, we don't understand how it works, and because it's built in layers, right? So here's a counter argument to that, is like, you can go to AI and you can be like, hey, I want, you could pull up some type of obscure thing. Give me some sources on this obscure topic, right? And it'll provide 3 sources and be like, give me 5 more. And it'll give you 5 more. And it'll be like, help me understand in any of these sources where it talks about this particular thing. Like, can you find me a quote that it talks about this particular thing? It'll provide 10 quotes. And then you can be like, oh, what page number is that quote from? And it'll tell you. Like, in the past, the amount of time that you would have to spend plowing through resources to just uncover one quote that matches maybe an argument that you're trying to make in the research is how I think it's going to be extremely powerful for people conducting research and being able to tie together obscure things that like the time suck there from a researching standpoint is just unbound. Like, that would take you months, and now you can literally do it in minutes. That's a really profound thing with AI that I'm really personally excited about. But with respect to writing, like you're exactly right. Like the kids can just, I couldn't imagine being a college student right now.
Right.
I couldn't even imagine like how they're dealing with this, but
yeah, my AI wrote my paper. Well, I appreciate your points. You're more positive about it than me, because I start to think of movies like Idiocracy and just wondering what the future will look like. But
the knife can be used to murder. The knife can be used to save, the surgeon can use it to save somebody's life. And I see AI in the exact same way, but it's so much more, the magnitude of it is just like off the charts compared to like, technology typically kind of moves things at a slower pace. Right. But now, and this goes perfectly to Jeff's, thesis of his book,
right.
Like we're on fold 45 with AI, or fold 46, and we're now moving the distance of planets with this leap in technology. And so like, is it bad? Is it good? It's both. But the magnitude is just so profound that it's difficult for you and me to even wrap our heads around, like, what is this?
I don't know what it is about the Bitcoin space, but I get sent on these knowledge journeys, and I'm more interested in how the brain works. I'm looking into space time and what is time, and like things that
endless.
I never. It really is. The other day I was having a really interesting conversation with someone about the idea of energy, how we're all energy, we're all connected, and there's a karmic debt that is paid. Like when there's opposing forces of good and bad, and I see Bitcoin sort of as this ultimate good and fiat as this ultimate bad, and will the good guy finally win? We're in that sort of battle now. But she said something really interesting, and she goes, isn't it, if we're all energy, then maybe you could associate that with this idea of spirit. Like, isn't it interesting that the spirit created technology to talk to itself so that it could all, and I was like, that's a fascinating thought.
Profound. I mean, there's the thinkers in this space is the part that I can't get enough of. And it's just so humbling to even be the smallest part of it,
That's how I feel.
Yeah. And the people that you and I both get to kind of interact with, it's just, it's kind of mind blowing. The intellectual brain power of some of the people in this space is just, it's crazy.
If we're right, I can't even imagine that world. But if we're wrong, I'm on the right team to be wrong with. You know what I mean?
That's right. I like that. I love that.
All right. Last, we've got like a minute left. What brings you joy? I know that you've had some recently interesting transitions in your life, and you're focused on your family more, and just what are you most excited and joyful about?
I mean, it's really the family, and just, we come out here to Jackson Hole and just seeing the look on their faces when they see this much snow for the first time, and they're skiing, and just, there's just nothing that can replace that. And it's just the thing that just makes life so worthwhile. So
your kids aren't talking about when the markets are going to break, when the pivot's going to happen. No. Do they know Jerome Powell by name?
No. Like, I mean, they know that I do finance and Bitcoin, but like, I don't talk to them about any of that stuff at all. It's a good break.
Understood. Thank you so much, Preston. We made it to 21 minutes.
Yes, we did. Yes.
Thank you so much. It's been a blast always.
Been a pleasure.
And thank you for all that you do for this community, because anytime that I say, I got to talk to Preston Pysh, everybody's like, oh my God. You've taught them so much. So.
You're too kind. You're too kind. Thank you, Natalie.
It's time to hear these messages from my partners. First up, Fold. Fold is the best Bitcoin rewards debit card and shopping app in the world. You can earn Bitcoin on everything you purchase, from Amazon to groceries to sprucing up your wardrobe, with Fold's Bitcoin cashback debit card. And you can win free Satoshis every day, or even play for the chance to win a whole Bitcoin by spinning the daily wheel and the purchase rewards wheel. I have an alarm set every day so I don't miss out on spinning the wheel and earning free sats. And it's also a great app to get someone that is totally new to Bitcoin. So if you want to join the fun, head to foldapp.com/Natalie and get 10,000 in free sats when you sign up. CrowdHealth, a Bitcoin alternative to health insurance. Health insurance costs can be sky high today, and you essentially send money every month to a massive corporation, the health insurance black hole, as I call it. And if you don't need any health care, you never see that money again, right? But if you do need to go to a doctor, you end up having to pay even more out of pocket, especially if you end up as one of the 20% of claims on average that aren't covered. With CrowdHealth, you pay a small monthly fee that goes into an account that you actually accrue over time and is yours to use or keep if you ever leave. You can even save that money in Bitcoin. CrowdHealth is all about community, and the community crowdfunds everyone's healthcare. So if something does happen or you have a doctor visit, CrowdHealth will negotiate down the medical bill much lower than what insurance would be, and then the community helps you cover it. And in return, you help others cover their needs. For more information, you can head to joincrowdhealth.com/Natalie. And if you use promo code Natalie, you get 6 months for $99. All right, next up, iTrustCapital. iTrustCapital lets you invest in Bitcoin for your retirement with the tax benefits of an IRA. You can defer taxes on gains using a crypto IRA, or with a Roth IRA, you can withdraw tax-free at retirement. And here are some important things to know given the recent crypto contagion. iTrust does not lend against client assets. iTrust accounts are also FDIC insured up to $250,000 US, and iTrust does not hold customer assets or money. Assets are actually held between Coinbase custody and a custody platform called Fireblocks. And Fireblocks, by the way, underlies pretty much the entire industry. So if you're doing retirement planning and considering adding Bitcoin to your IRA portfolio, you can sign up for an account and get a $100 bonus at itrust.capital/Natalie Brunell. Thank you so much for checking out this episode of Coin Stories. Again, hit like on the video and make sure that you have those notifications on so you don't miss out on any new episodes. And I would love to hear from you. If you have suggestions, feedback, guest requests, please email me at natalie@talkingbitcoin.com. Thanks so much.